NBA trade rumors are heating up, and it seems like the Miami Heat are preparing for a blockbuster draft day trade involving the Sacramento Kings. I'm here to break down two brand new pieces of information suggesting two crazy trades involving this Heat team and the Sacramento Kings as soon as the NBA draft that is quickly approaching. We'll break down all of that on this episode of Heat Digest, but first, please do remember, if you're a part of the near 80% watching this video not currently subscribed, scroll down and click that subscribe button to stay up to date on everything Miami Heat. We do appreciate the love and support, so thank you guys for everything. But now let's get to it and break down the news and why is Miami connected to this Sacramento Kings team, as it's not relatively new, as the Sacramento Kings and the Miami Heat have been in connections for one reason or another for the last few years, whether it be during the regular season or during the offseason. It seems like the Kings or the Heat always maintain an asset that the other one just simply enjoys and would be intrigued to acquire, but it never actually happens. We've seen this in the last 8 months with players like DeMar DeRozan as well as others in connections to this Miami Heat team, and now we have a bunch of different information. One of them I think you guys are going to lose your minds over, because when I originally read it, I almost fell out of my chair because it's just simply insane. It really is. It's craziness, and you'll understand why. So this came from Sacramento Sports 1140. This guy doing the radio, he has this conversation involving the Kings and the Heat, and he goes on to tie in this trade. And this trade is simply ridiculous. And now, Hot Hoops, I apologize, on Twitter went on to then subtweet it with the actual trade package in writing. So this is what he would go on to say. Sacramento Kings radio host proposing a Bam, Rozier, Jaquez, and 20th overall pick trade for Sabonis and DeMar DeRozan. Okay, bear with me. You don't trade Bam under any circumstances, especially for a non-top 10 player. Thoughts? Now, I'll give you my thoughts. This trade is insane. Giving up Bam is one thing. Then giving up Rozier plus Jaquez and a 20th overall pick for Sabonis and DeMar DeRozan. Yes, would you be getting two great assets back in return for one really good asset, a young player with a lot of upside, and a 20th overall pick plus whatever you want to label Terry Rozier as. I don't want to just totally bash him, but we all remember what the second part really 3/4. I'm not trying to sugarcoat it. I'm not trying to be blunt. I'm not trying to really just trash him again, like I mentioned. But like the majority of last season, over half of the season, Rozier was not even usable for this Miami Heat organization. Unfortunately, as everyone had a lot of upside and a lot of hope for Rozier in this Miami Heat system, it just never panned out. It never worked, and he's definitely one of the top pieces that the entirety of the Heat Nation hope is moved this offseason for one good asset or another. Now, this trade package involving Rozier. Now, no one's going to complain about Rozier being involved in this trade package. It's the idea that Bam Adebayo would also be on the way out. Now, getting Sabonis back would be great, but trying to replace Bam with with DeMar DeRozan as well as Sabonis would be a bit drastic. Bam has meant so much to this organization, and yes, he did have a down year last year and didn't really make that big step that we were all hoping for, but I don't believe anyone is ready to sell on Bam Adebayo, including the front office of this Miami Heat organization. So this idea in itself is craziness, and if the Kings were to make this trade, if you look at the way their contracts are currently broken down, yes, they have players like Zach LaVine. Yes, they have Sabonis, Malik Monk. They have, obviously, DeMar DeRozan, someone we have discussed already in this video. Devin Carter, a young rookie, or someone going into his sophomore year, just completed his rookie season. That looked very, very good. A defensive-minded point guard that seems like they can do a lot on the NBA stage and only continue to get better. Keegan Murray, another good young piece, three-point shooter, spot-up shooter that could be very useful to any team in the NBA, but those guys weren't even mentioned in this trade. Simply giving up two main stars, one of them an aging veteran in DeMar DeRozan who has been around this league for a long, long time and has been wildly successful. Is he a piece the Miami Heat are going to try to acquire in giving up Bam Adebayo? I can't say that is something they would like to do. Now, putting Sabonis on this team, I'm not going to argue against it, but in doing so, you'd have to give up Bam, at least Bam, and maybe even Kel'el Ware and others. I don't think the Sacramento Kings would go for this trade with Bam, Rozier, Jaquez in the 20th overall pick. There's massive conversations that the Kings desperately do want to move up in this draft with that 20th overall pick or better, so I could see how they could hang that out in front of the Sacramento Kings and use it as bait, but I don't believe the Heat are going to involve someone like Bam Adebayo in any form of trade conversation, as they didn't even budge to even consider him in a conversation for Kevin Durant, as well as even players like Jaquez, Jovic, or Kel'el Ware. So this trade idea from this radio host on Sacramento Sports 1140 is just ridiculous, and I think he's just reaching for all views and clicks and just ears in any way, because there's no way this trade's being done. Now, to move on to the actual real concrete information that we can put some faith in and expect to possibly happen here in the next 5 to 8 to 10 days involving these two organizations. Again, reporting and citing Michael Scotto, someone we have cited on this channel a whole bunch in the past. And he would go on to say a bunch, including this. The Sacramento Kings have been active in trade talks around the league this offseason since Scott Perry has replaced Monte McNair as general manager. The Kings have expressed a desire to acquire a first-round pick in the 2025 NBA draft, league sources told Hoops Hype. Amid those conversations, Sacramento has gauged the trade market on guards Malik Monk and Devin Carter, sources said. So, Scotto going on to give us an idea that these two are the main pieces that the Sacramento Kings would be looking to shop this offseason in comparison to players like LaVine, DeMar, Sabonis, whoever it may be. Those star guys seem like they're going to be input in Sacramento unless a big trade comes across like the phones or something happens where someone just gets desperate and offers them a whole lot in exchange for some big name stars coming out of Sacramento. And I don't think Miami's going to be willing to do so after what we just watched transpire with the Houston Rockets and the Phoenix Suns, as well as the Miami Heat, and really the lack of just pursuit towards Durant and the willingness to give up these big name players like Kel'el Ware, like Jovic, like Jaquez, these young pieces, these very, very young pieces that the Miami Heat have a lot of faith in, that wouldn't even be considered stars by any means. They'd be good role players on the Miami Heat, obviously, like we've witnessed, but also they have the optimism and really hope that they're going to bloom into these big name stars for this Heat organization and allow them to be cornerstones for the franchise going forward. Now, Scotto would go on to say, however, since taking over, Perry has pursued a veteran point guard to replace De'Aaron Fox, whom the franchise traded to the Spurs. As previously reported by Hoops Hype on June 4th, rival NBA executives are also monitoring the trio of Sabonis, LaVine, and DeMar DeRozan, with the belief that the Sacramento Kings will explore the possibility of trading at least one of these players either this offseason or before the trade deadline in February. Now, would it make sense if the Kings wanted to move one of these guys? Yes, but it's going to take a desperate, drastic action involved to get them out of Sacramento. That is my genuine opinion. If you look at the contracts and the way they're broken down, Sabonis is being taken care of for the next 4 years by this Sacramento Kings team, and he's being paid handsomely. Now, he's not the only one. Zach LaVine has 2 more years under his contract, the second being a player option for $44 million. And as it currently sits, I would bet that LaVine would opt into that contract if still in Sacramento, because it doesn't seem like free agency is going to treat him all that well. Now, if things just flat out do not work in Sacramento and they basically have a Phoenix Suns-esque season next season, I could see how he could want to get out of Sacramento. I just, again, don't know how free agency is really going to treat him if he does opt out of 8.9, basically $49 million in that final year. It's a lot of money to turn down, especially if you're going to test free agency as someone who hasn't been a dominant offensive threat and not the greatest two-way player up to this point in his career. Despite being relatively young, I just don't see a lot of teams biting the bait and giving LaVine that much money. For the other name, Sabonis is a walking threat to have a triple-double night in and night out. Now, he's not the most dominant force putting the ball in the basket himself, but when he adds the ability and when he maintains, which he does, again, day in and day out, to facilitate the basketball at such a high level while also being a defensive presence and have the ability to rebound at such a high clip, This guy is in a class of very, very few. And yes, and no, or let me rephrase that. And no, I'm not saying he's Nikola Jokic. That's not what I'm saying. There's a very, very large difference between these two players. But when you look at the overall play style and the overall abilities that 1 and 2 maintain, Sabonis isn't far off. Yes, the offensive packages are a bit different, but when it comes down to the overall game and the ability to walk down that floor and produce a triple-double night in and night out with the defensive abilities that are higher than Jokic's, Sabonis maintains an abnormally large trade value as well as just value in itself across the league. Someone that if he were to test free agency, which it's going to be a long time until he does, if ever, he's going to get a Kings ransom. And that's whether it be via trade or, again, in the offseason as a free agent, which I'm betting does not happen for at least a long, long time as he is under contract for the next 4 years. No player or team options involved. And it just doesn't seem like they would even allow him to walk to free agency. Whether the Kings maintain him and extend him once again or try to trade him for all the value they can get before he enters that last year of his contract, once he gets to a new team, the new team would then guaranteed would extend him immediately because of the overall value he maintains. And then finally, DeMar DeRozan, only 3 more years on his contract. The final one, I believe, is guaranteed. I think that's why it's in italics. I think. I could be wrong. Please take that with a grain of salt. I could be extremely, extremely wrong there. I'm on NBA or Basketball Reference. That is where this graphic comes from, and I don't 100% know why it's in italics. I want to say it's because it's guaranteed. Could be definitely wrong there. Again, whether any of these guys are traded, it's going to take a large, large trade package in order to get any of these guys, and I just don't see the Heat doing it. Wiggins could be available in this trade package. It's just, would the Heat want to give up someone like Andrew Wiggins for someone like Zach LaVine or DeMar DeRozan? I don't think it'd be very likely. DeMar is a little bit older than Andrew Wiggins. Wiggins is only 30 years old, is a good two-way star, not a dominant force on either end of the floor, but definitely respectable and competent on both ends of the floor and could be a good piece to this Heat team if they decide to maintain him. So if anything were to be done, I think it involves that 20th overall pick and possibly Terry Rozier. And I think the Heat would try to see if the Kings are desperate in the scenario. See if they can acquire players like Devin Carter, players like Keegan Murray, Trey Lyles, Malik Monk. Those guys I feel like would be involved in this trade package for the Miami Heat in return if they were giving up players like Rozier, the 20th overall pick, and possibly 1 or 2 other small complementary role players, if not one of the young guys in Jaquez or Jovic. It's going to be interesting to see where the Kings find themselves in just a few days with the draft quickly approaching, and if they get desperate for one of these picks from Miami or anyone else in the NBA. Let me know down below what your overall thoughts and opinions are. Would you like to see Miami move that 20th overall pick and possibly get one of these guys like we mentioned in Keegan Murray, in Malik Monk, in Trey Lyles, one of these guys that could possibly be a good utility piece for this Miami Heat team going forward while also not maintaining a lot of contract and being a role player, a good complementary piece to the stars in Miami that takes some load and some of the heavy lifting off of their necks and backs. Thank you guys for watching, and I will see you guys on the next episode of Heat Digest.